There is an imperative to put a price on pollution, and if there are costs associated with for average families, we will more than compensate those families for those costs.
So how will this work? Well, to recap, several jurisdictions already have their own plans or they've opted to go with the feds. So let's focus instead on those that didn't comply. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and New Brunswick. Collectively, that's about half the national population. Starting in January, industry and companies will be taxed $20 per ton of carbon emissions, just to begin, which Ottawa admits will almost certainly then be passed on to you, the consumer. That means a jump at the gas pump and your heating bill. Other products will probably go up too. So to help cover those costs, that's where the rebate plan comes in. The feds anticipate collecting billions on the carbon tax. They say 90% will go directly back to consumers, 10% to small businesses, schools, and hospitals. So Canadians get their annual rebate at tax time, either added to the refund or deducted from what they owe. What kind of money is it per household? That depends on things like where you live and access to transit. According to the feds, on average, it'll work out to about $300 in Ontario per household, $250 in New Brunswick, more than $330 in Manitoba, and in Saskatchewan, almost $600. Now, those rebates could be crucial because any measure that hits taxpayers in the wallet is going to be a tough sell. It's the Prime Minister's greatest challenge when it comes to carbon pricing. And as Catherine Cullen tells us, with an election fast approaching, Trudeau has a lot riding on his sales pitch.
We're going to help Canadians thrive.
What do you call a tax when you don't want to use the word tax?
The price on pollution. It will no longer be free to pollute. If you put a price on something you don't want, pollution, people will pollute less.
You're looking at a key moment in a political wrestling match over the carbon tax. Note the young audience to help build a sense of moral imperative.
The time is now to take real action.
But a growing chorus of Conservative opponents say this agenda is anything but worthy.
It's just another Trudeau Liberal tax grab.
The Trudeau tax scheme amounts to a financial shell game.
Canadians won't be tricked by this.
Carbon pricing writ large has been endorsed by Nobel Prize-winning economists, amongst others. But the specifics of this plan are key to its success or failure. Enter the tax rebates. Officials say about 70% of Canadians in the affected provinces will get more back on their tax returns than they'll pay in carbon taxes.
Our province asks, if this is the case, what's the point?
It's basic economics that if you start putting a price on something you don't want, people will look at ways of not having to pay that price.
But some say a rebate that starts in an election year is suspect.
But now we know it's really also just an election gimmick.
A suggestion the Prime Minister got a little sarcastic about after a reporter mentioned it.
It's a very unpopular tax, though. I'm wondering if you're using
But
these
I'm buying
checks.
Votes with it, right?
Right, but so I'm wondering if you're using these checks, though.
Trudeau says this isn't about politics, but consider where he made this announcement.
Right here in Etobicoke North.
In Ontario Premier Doug Ford's riding.
Justin Trudeau wants to make it personal, go into my backyard and make the tax.
Trudeau pointed out that, in fact, it is the federal science minister's riding, though she didn't utter a word at today's news conference. It seems clear that Trudeau and Ford have sized each other up as their preferred political opponents, ones to get their supporters riled up on this increasingly hot topic. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
So the lines have been drawn in the sand, but politics aside, is the carbon pricing model sound in practice? To try to get a sense of that, we reached out to someone who understands the science and the financial aspects. That's Jennifer Winter at the University of Calgary. She studies how government policy affects the environment and natural resources. Jennifer, you're also an economics professor, so you're perfectly suited for this. If the point is to get people to pollute less, is taxing companies then offering households rebates actually going to work?
Absolutely. So the way the plan has rolled out is that we're pricing the emissions of companies and of households, And that creates the incentive to change behavior, to reduce emissions, both on the company side and the household side. And we know that people and firms respond to incentives, so this is going to work at reducing emissions.
Okay, so it looks like the average household will get about $300. Does the math suggest to you that's enough to cover all the extra costs of a hike in heating and gas because of the carbon tax?
Yes, my estimates suggest that depending where someone is in Canada and depending on their energy use, that their costs can range from, say, $250 to $400 at $20 a ton. And so an average household rebate of $300 should be covering those costs.
Okay, Jennifer Winter, we'll see. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.